To start off with a 19mm socket, remove all 5 of your lug nuts and then take the wheel off. If your wheel is stuck on like this one, go ahead and put on a lug nut for safety and then use a rubber mallet and tap it from the backside, but always hit the tire, not the rim. You don't want to damage the rim. Remove your lug nut and take the wheel off. Before I continue, I'm going to take a pry bar, put it in here, and wedge it between the pad and the rotor on the inside, and just pull. That'll compress the pistons a little bit, make it easier to remove the caliper. From the backside, remove these 2 bolts. They're 14mm, and they hold the caliper onto the bracket. And when you remove the caliper, set it up on top of the brake rotor. You don't want it to hang on the brake hose, that'll damage it. Now you can remove your pads. And with an 18mm socket, remove these 2 bolts, and that holds the bracket onto the knuckle. Remove these bolts and take your bracket right off. Now you can come out here, and if your rotor still has the T30 Torx securing screw, go ahead and take that out. Mine's missing, and you can remove the rotor. Next, use a 36mm socket, remove your axle nut. I'm going to spray some rust penetrant in there to hopefully break it free from the hub. I'm going to start the nut back on, and then with a punch, I'm going to try to punch in the center of it, drive it through. I had a feeling that the axle would be rusted in there so severely that the punch wasn't going to work, so I'm going to make the axle nut flush with the axle. Now I'm going to use my hammer and just hammer right on here. The fact that the axle nut is flush is going to prevent the threads on the outside from mushrooming out. That broke free. Perfect. Now that that broke free, remove the axle nut completely. Spray some more rust penetrant. Now from the back side, you'll see 3 15mm bolts. You can't actually see all 3 at once, but they're basically in a triangle pattern. 1 here, 1 over here, and then 1 up top. Go ahead and remove all 3. There's 1. And bolt number 3. One last thing before this wheel bearing comes off is to disconnect the ABS sensor. Pull on this tab, pull it out. This can stay in here because the backing plate's going to come off with the bearing. Now take your hammer and hammer the wheel bearing out of the knuckle. There's your wheel bearing. Take the backing plate off and recycle this. Now you want to clean inside this hole here. Make sure that there's no more corrosion. This is an aluminum knuckle, so it's not going to rust, but it will corrode severely. And that's what's making things get stuck in there. So just clean out everything. I'm just using a simple wire brush here. Doesn't have to be looking brand new, but just get rid of all this built up corrosion here. With this all nice and clean, I sprayed it with some brake parts cleaner just to remove all the dust. And now I'm going to coat it with some anti-seize. You can use the brushed kind if that's what you have, but this is going to prevent corrosion from building up in the future like it just did now. I'm going to spray some on the splines of the axle. Now you can take the backing plate, and remember this tab, looks like the piece of plastic is still in there. I'll have to take that out later. Put the ABS sensor through the hole. Once that's through, line up the bolt holes. Line up the splines on the axle. And once all that is lined up, everything should fall right into place. I should have mentioned prior, I cleaned up the threads on this bolt with a wire brush, and then I applied brand new thread locker. Now I'm going to line these up. Just try to start in all these bolts by hand. Okay, that one started. Try the other two. That one started as well. Last but not least, this top one. That one started too. Perfect. While I'm here, I'm going to remove this old clip and clip in the new ABS sensor. Resecure the new connector and connect it in. Perfect. Torque these 3 bolts to 96 foot-pounds. Next, reinstall the axle nut. Let's bottom it out and torque it to 157 foot-pounds. I have a pry bar going across, resting on my lift. I'm going to torque this to 157 foot-pounds. Okay, I did tighten it up with my air gun, but as you saw, I didn't go all the way. You want to make sure that you don't when you do it with an air gun. You don't want to over-tighten the bearing by accident. Now you want to coat this hub with some anti-seize. That's going to prevent rust from building up in the future. Now you can take your rotor, slide it on. One more thing I'd like to mention is if you still have your rotor securing screw, you have to match up the hole in the rotor with the one on the hub. I don't, so I don't have to worry about it. Now install the caliper bracket, line up the 2 bolt holes, and I did clean up the threads on these bolts. If you want to install thread locker, go ahead, but definitely don't put any anti-seize or grease on them. All right, let's snug these up. 136 foot-pounds for both of these. Go ahead and slide in your pads. Now you can take the caliper, slide it up and over, start in the 2 caliper mounting bolts, and then we'll torque them to 20 foot-pounds. Reinstall your wheel. Start on all 5 of your lug nuts, bottom them out, and torque them to 100 foot-pounds.